Earlier this week, my wife and I went with a few friends to go see M. Night Shyamalan's newest film, Knock at the Cabin. I was super pumped to go see this after I saw the first trailer for it. One, because I'm a big M. Night Shyamalan fan, even though he has let me down on several occasions. But even with his very hit or miss filmography, it is always nice to see what M. Night Shyamalan is going to bring to the table in terms of his directing abilities. And from the trailer, this looked like a very character-driven, small setting, nail-biting thriller. And I was excited to see Shyamalan take on a project like this. And then after reading about the movie a little bit more, I realized that the movie is based off of the novel The Cabin at the End of the World by Paul Tremblay. And as someone who has been challenging himself to read more, I decided to read this book. And I really loved it. It was a really good book. The story was gripping, the characters are really well fleshed out, the stakes are extremely high, there's moments that will have you very emotional and crying, and then there's other moments that will have you wincing from the violent acts that you are reading about. It's also really short and super fast paced. I blew through it. I read it in like less than a week, and I am not a fast reader by any means. I just genuinely couldn't put it down. It was a super fun read. But after reading Paul Tremblay's book, I got a little worried for Knock at the Cabin, because according to IMDb, Paul Tremblay did not contribute at all to the writing of this movie. All he did was write the book. The screenplay actually was taken on by three people, Steve Desmond and Michael Sherman, who, according to IMDb, this is their first feature film, and then also M. Night Shyamalan himself. And this is where my worry for Knock at the Cabin turned into legit fear. Because as much as I love M. Night as a director, I do not like him as a writer. Take two of his most recent movies, for example, Old and Glass. Both movies have a lot to offer in terms of technical filmmaking. They're both full of incredible cinematography, solid performances. They both look and sound really great, but the weakest part of those two movies and a lot of other Shyamalan movies is their writing. So after reading that M. Night had written the screenplay for Knock at the Cabin, a movie based on a book that I had recently read and really enjoyed, I got really worried that this was either going to be a horrible book to movie adaptation or maybe even worse, just a horrible movie in general. So, was Knock at the Cabin a bad movie? No. In fact, I really liked it. It was good. M. Night Shyamalan again proves himself to be a really good director. And he shows us again that he really knows how to work a camera, how to block and direct a scene. This movie, in its small setting, really forces M. Night to go bare bones with his directing. 90% of the movie takes place in the living room of this cabin, yet the camera never feels stale. The movie's shot in 35mm film, so all of the colors and saturation and graininess all look super stellar. There's a lot of moments in the film that are just conversations between two people, and the really tight close-ups and the different character POVs are really nice and really well done. I truly believe that this is M. Night Shyamalan's best movie since Split. And I didn't even love Split that much. I would say that this one's probably better than Split, in my opinion. Dave Bautista gives his best performance to date. Jonathan Groff and Ben Aldridge are perfect. The young girl, Kristen Cui, I think that's how you... Cui? I don't know how to pronounce that last name. I'm so sorry. Yeah, the young girl, she crushed it. The girl who plays Wynn absolutely did amazing. And from what I can tell, this is her first movie ever. And I think this is a great way to start what I assume is going to be a very successful career. Since the cast is so small and the setting is so confined, everyone kind of has to be on their A game, and everyone is, 100%. So yes, from a technical standpoint, from how it looks and sounds and how everyone acts in this movie, I really liked it. But now we have to talk about the writing. Was Knock at the Cabin a good book to movie adaptation? Short answer, yes. Long answer, yes. But what does it really mean to be a good book to movie adaptation? Or what does it even mean to be a good adaptation of any source material? I mean, I loved Noah Baumbach's White Noise from last year, but that movie is about as straightforward of an adaptation as you can get, where it feels like the screenplay was just Don DeLillo's novel. It feels like hardly any changes were made from the source material and nothing was really expanded on, but it does it in a way that still respects the original source material, and it still makes for a good movie. But then you also have stuff like HBO's The Last of Us, which I've been loving, which isn't a straightforward adaptation. It takes a lot of time to expand on characters and story elements from the original game, and I love that. Episode 3 alone of The Last of Us is already in the running for like my favorite movie of this year. That episode is a perfect example of taking something so small from the source material and expanding on it and giving it more depth. So on one side, you have something like White Noise, which is a very straightforward, no frills, nothing new added or changed type of adaptation. And then over here, you have something like The Last of Us that takes a lot of liberties and expands on ideas from the source material. So where on this spectrum does Knock at the Cabin land? Basically right in the middle, kind of. For the first and second act of Knock at the Cabin, the movie is basically a page-for-page recreation of the book. There's some minor changes in like the dialogue and some character moments. They took some out just for pacing's sake. But even though there's not much changes in those first two acts, I still loved it because I loved hearing the lines that I read being brought to life by Dave Bautista. I liked seeing all of the emotions that I felt while reading the book actualized on screen. I even liked seeing those little changes that they made in the dialogue. I even liked figuring out which scenes they cut out for time's sake. But for the most part, the first two acts of this movie are very much like book, movie. There it is. They're one and the same. But then we get to the third act. And that's where I have some issues. There is a very specific moment that happens with a certain character in the movie. And it's something that happens in the movie, but does not happen in the book. And when it happened, I knew that things were going to be different, and it was going to change a lot of things to the ending of this movie. The entire third act is completely different from the book. And I think that's my biggest complaint with Knock at the Cabin. My complaint isn't that they changed the ending. My complaint is that they wrote a new ending that pales in comparison to the original. The ending of the book has so much more weight and ambiguity to it. In the book, the stakes build and build and build, leading to this very tense and emotional ending that leaves you honestly pretty shook. Whereas in the movie, all of these stakes are being built, but they lead to a very flat and bland, very cliche ending. So I get that like when it comes to the ending of this movie, I have another ending to compare it to, and I get to say like, oh, I liked this one better. And any audience member who hasn't read the book won't get to do that. The only ending they have is the movie ending. So am I just being biased? Probably. But when my wife and I were talking to our friends after the movie, they kind of agreed with me that the ending wasn't that great and felt very flat and kind of rushed. And then whenever I explained to them how the book ended, they agreed 1,000% that the ending to the book is way better. So what am I trying to say here? I guess what I'm trying to say is I really enjoyed Knock at the Cabin. I just wish that if M. Night Shyamalan was going to take the risk of changing the source material, especially so late into the source material, that he had just written something better than he did. Just add this to the list of Shyamalan films that I think are knocked down a few pegs because of his writing. Overall, I give the film a 3 out of 5. I would still recommend it even if you have the smallest bit of interest in seeing it. The book, however, I would highly recommend. If you are looking for a quick, tense, fast-paced, little thriller just to read, this is a good one to read. You should check it out. Yeah, I mean I'm excited to see what M. Night does next. If you have anything to add in the conversation of book to movie adaptations or just movie adaptations in general, please start a dialogue in the comments and I will for sure message people back. Yeah, so that was my thoughts on Knock at the Cabin. Let me know what you thought, if you saw it or if you read it. Yeah, my name is Cody Metcalf. Thank you for watching.
Hello, Mr. Metcalf. Sorry to interrupt you in the middle of your filming, but I have a tough mission for you. I need you to give M. Night Shyamalan's Knock at the Cabin a perfect 5 out of 5, or the world as you know it will cease to exist. The oceans will swallow cities, the skies will fall like shards of glass, and the world will be filled with darkness. Wait.